This is the multiple award-winning GardenDC podcast, the podcast about everything gardening in the Washington, D.C. and Mid-Atlantic region. I'm your host, Kathy Jentz. I'm the editor of Washington Gardener magazine. Our content is aimed at gardening enthusiasts, people who grow everything, from edibles to ornamentals, natives to exotics. If it grows in our area, that's what we talk about. Welcome to episode 221 of the GardenDC podcast. In this episode, we share our favorite gardening products and gift ideas for gardeners. Holiday season is here, and I bet you have a gardener on your gift list. So we've updated our annual holiday gifts for gardeners, top gardening gifts, 21 plus cool gardening gift ideas posts that we do on our blog every year. And so I thought I'd share it in this special GardenDC podcast episode. These are the products that I use almost every day in the garden. They are tried and true work tools that make my garden grow. They save my back from breaking and generally make life a little easier. You could buy a few for others, but also don't. For disclosure, some of these items were sent to me free to trial, but I've gone on to repurchase many of them for myself as well as for gifts for other gardeners. The gift ideas here that I'm going to share on this episode and that are linked on our blog post are linked to our Amazon affiliate account. That means if you click on them and order any, Washington Gardener magazine gets a few pennies added to the account for the referral, but it doesn't increase or affect the price you pay at all. Our full Amazon storefront is at amazon.com/shop/WDC Gardener, and we'll share that link in our show notes and, of course, to the blog post that I am sharing from. So the first garden tool or helping item that I want to share with you all is Dramm's lightweight, high-grade plastic watering can. And so Dramm is with two M's, Dramm. And Dramm makes a wonderful watering can line. There are various sizes, shapes, and purposes to them. They last a long time in the garden, including a lot of abuse that I put them through. I am not kind to my watering cans. I generally tend to throw them into the corner when I'm done with them just because I'm lazy or running in to catch a call or a Zoom meeting. So on Amazon, you could go to the Dramm store and check out their various sizes. I like the 5-liter, it's called. They come in really nice different colors of the rainbow. Green, I think, is the most popular, but of course, I love berry, which is pretty much a straight purple color because that's my favorite color. Also because, as I've just said, I tend to throw things around the garden and I want a tool or any task item I'm using in the garden to stand out against the green background. So I normally would choose a red, a purple, a yellow item if it comes in different colors. So they are made in the USA, which makes them almost a local thing to purchase, and you're supporting an American company when you're purchasing them. So I highly recommend those Dramm products, and we'll get to another one later in this episode. Next is Gardener Supplies Company's Madison rain barrel. So when I originally purchased a rain barrel from Gardener Supply, I did it directly from their catalog, but you can do so through their Amazon store as well. And the Madison model looks like a kind of a column, like a white column. So if it's put up against your house and you have a white house, it just kind of blends in. So that's great for that. It also comes in black for better blending in up against a shed or your house or anything. And it has kind of a rectangular shape as opposed to the classic round shape. But also, if you go to the page, you'll see other Gardener Supply rain barrels, and one is on a wooden rain barrel stand. And you might want to think about when you are buying a rain barrel, where you're going to place it, that you want to elevate it a little bit. So either up on bricks or cinder blocks. But Gardener Supply also sells a wooden rain barrel stand that holds up to 750 pounds, and that's super important, of course, because when that rain barrel is full, it is heavy. But having it elevated up a little bit helps helps you to get that rainwater flowing out of the barrel. And I'm sharing for those who can watch me on the Spotify app. I'm sharing my screen and I'm sharing Gardener Supplies Company's page because they have a lot of other great gardening products and they are gardeners themselves. It's an employee owned company and I'm scrolling down just to show a few of them. Many of them I have used and ordered over the years. So I'm going to go back to our list of great garden products and gift ideas and jump next to Foxgloves. So this one is a nice glove to gift yourself as well as everybody on your list. So I'm showing on the screen the grip gardening gloves. They go over your wrist a little bit longer than your typical gardening gloves. They do have longer gloves and special task gloves like rose gloves and that sort of thing in the Foxgloves collection. But I love this kind of gauntlet in between size. So it keeps your wrist warm. And if your jacket or shirt rides up, it gives you some protection too there. And of course, Foxgloves are available in several colors, and I always go for lavender for myself, but I think the fuchsia pink is also super popular, as well as kind of a lime green, spring green color. They're made out of a really soft supplex nylon material that feels cottony. It's tough and resilient. They look like dress gloves, but they are really actually workhorses, and I go through gloves like tissues in the garden. I have so many left gloves. I don't know about the rest of you, but I go through my right-handed gloves really easily, and I still have the original Foxglove pair that I bought years ago. So that tells you how tough and hardworking they are. And Foxgloves Company is again woman owned and based in the US, so a good buy local choice. They are unisex and they are true to size. I wear a large because I have fairly long fingers, but if I was a man with long fingers, I would go for the extra large. I forgot to say that they are washable. They are water resistant, but you know, when you're sticking your hands in really muddy soil, you will want to knock off that extra soil and dirt and then throw them in the washer, and they come out just fine after that. Whereas a lot of other gardening gloves don't really do that for me. And again, I usually bust through the forefinger and thumb of most of my right garden gloves, but I haven't yet for these. So check out Foxgloves. Treat yourself if you haven't already. Tried on a pair just to try them on, use them in the garden for a little bit and think about maybe somebody else on your list who might want to enjoy this little luxury in their life. So next wearable item on our list is the Sloggers garden clogs. So many people who know me personally know I'm a huge fan of Crocs. I love Crocs, so wear Crocs all the time. But one of the garden shoes I depend on the most are these slip-on sloggers because they're a little bit thicker than Crocs. Of course, they're closed in the front where a lot of Crocs are open. They're just as comfortable. They're just as easy to hose down and clean and then just throw in a corner. And then when you want to wear them, just pull them out again. I love the kiwi color. See, I'm going against type. I'm not picking the purple this time. So I like the kiwi green. It has a black sole. That's a really fun one. Again, they're pretty true to size. If you're a half size up, so I'm 8.5, so I go with a 9. They are very comfortable, and I am very picky about shoes. Again, it's made in the USA product, and so you're supporting a local company. And you can also trim the inserts that go inside. You can also replace those inserts when they get worn out. But they're a little bit stiffer material. They come in a lot more different patterns than Crocs do. So, and they're, of course, more durable sole. If you've worn a lot of Crocs as I have, you'll know that the soles on them wear through the first thing before anything else. So these I've worn for at least a decade or so in the garden and still have my original pair of Sloggers. So check those out. And our next wearable gift item for gardeners is the Scala Woman's Medium Brim Cotton Hat. So this is great for when you're working out in the sun, for sun protection, to keep your hair back and out of your eyes. Again, comes in an array of colors, and I have the crimson rose. I wear that one a lot. I also have a white one because I like to live dangerously out in the garden. And they are washable, which is great about them. And you can roll them up, and they're pretty packable and easy, and they look good. That's the great thing about them, is they don't look like it's your garden hat. You would just think it's a nice little sun hat. And they have an inner drawstring around your temple and forehead, and then it secures in the back. So if you do find the hats to be a little bit large, or if it's flying off in the wind or something, you can just tighten that a little bit. I buy the medium. I kind of have a small size-ish head, so I would say. So I would say medium is good for most women. The other thing I like is that the brim can be turned up or turned down. Of course, looks nicer when the brim is turned up all the way around. There is an inner sweatband if you are sweating profusely in the sun, and it does offer some UPF protection. So you can, as I said, fold it over or kind of roll it up for packing, and it is, again, easy to hand wash, has that inner drawstring. And I was going to scroll down to show some of the hat sizing for those who are able to see the video I am sharing. So it goes all the way up to a triple X large. Wow. So it really does go, but you can measure your head and figure those sizing tips out. And I do notice that the Scala line of sun hats or garden hats is sold in a lot of public gardens that I visit. And that's actually where I picked up my crimson rose one. Was out at a public garden once, and I had either lost or forgotten my hat somewhere. And so I grabbed this new one, and I was happy for the excuse to buy another Scala hat. I think if I was to buy another one now, I'm going to probably invest in the olive one, because I think that would go with a lot of khaki and other outfits. But once you buy one Scala hat, you're going to buy more. You're going to start collecting them. So let's go on to some more useful garden tools, and bringing up the garden kneeler pad. This one is by In Sassy, like IN, the capital S, Sassy. It's used for gardening mainly, but it has so many other uses that I find. So you can use it obviously for giving a baby a bath, or your pets a bath in the bathtub, for scrubbing the bathtub. I'll sometimes bring my garden kneeler pad in, so that's more gentle on my knees. You can use it as a supplement in your yoga or exercise routine. And of course, if you want to kneel outside and sit down for any reason, it's a nice surface to sit down on. Of course, I'm mainly using it in the garden when I'm kneeling down and weeding or harvesting. I like this one because it is extra thick. I've seen a lot of thinner garden pads. I have several thin dollar store garden pads that I'll usually stack 2 or 3 together to get the same thickness as this one if I'm letting my interns or somebody else borrow my garden kneeler pad. My favorite one, then I'll stack up some of the thinner ones, but I recommend buying a thicker one in the first place, and they are super durable. The other thing that I use my garden kneeler pad for is kind of as a broom. And I had another gardener, he was a master gardener, come along and catch me doing it. And he was amazed. And he said, that's one idea I never thought of, which is after I'm done potting up something, say on my back steps, and there's a little bit of trash around from the dirt that's fallen out of the pot, or some extra leaves have come out, or I've pruned off some of the spent blooms, and those are laying on the steps, I just use the kneeling pad kind of just to brush everything like a broom to the side, and it actually works pretty well for that purpose. So of course, gardening pads come in several different colors. Here it's offered in a bright green and a blue color. I would get the purple the next time I order, but of course, up to you what you want to do. And they do come in different lengths and sizes: large, extra large, and XX large. And of course, the largest and thickest is the one I recommend, which is the 1.5-inch thickness. So check that one out. Treat yourself especially to a garden kneeler, even if it's, the dollar store kind, and or a rolled up newspaper, just to protect the health of your knees. So going on to one of my favorite garden tools to use, and this is the Corona Long Straight Snip. and this is from Corona Tools based in California. And the snip is just a little snip pruner, a long narrow tip to it. It is a fully heat treated steel blade, and it has a little leather snap closure. I find a lot of times the closures will break on these things, but the leather one has lasted pretty well for me. I'm going to scroll down and show some of the uses on our screen for the snips. Of course, deadheading and harvesting is one of the top uses for just having a little pair of snips in your pocket. The tip of it is not so pointy that it will poke through your pockets. And as somebody who just runs out into the garden and shoves things into my dress pockets or other things, I'm grateful for that, because I've ruined more than one pocket in a garment by sticking pruners or sharper shears in there. So these are great for that. The snips are also good, of course, when you're going around your garden foraging for blooms and foliage to make flower arrangements. So these are the ones I use most for my floral arranging and display classes. I'll usually have several pairs of these snips to hand out for people to use and share. And Corona snips come in a couple different models. There's a straight snip, the long straight snip. There's kind of a curved tip one, but I tend to go with the classic one. So I will now share my, I think it's going to say, absolute favorite gardening tool. And I was gardening for a few years in my garden plot before I got this, and it was backbreaking work. And I can say it changed things almost overnight for me when I started using this. And this is the CobraHead original weeder. You've probably heard me, if you've been listening to the podcast, talk about CobraHead before. It's a cultivator. It's forged steel blade. The handle is made out of recycled plastic. It's ergonomically designed for digging. You can use it for edging. You can use it as on its side as a kind of dig hoe. I love the long-handled CobraHead, especially for digging and making rows in my vegetable garden. It is designed by gardeners, and they are based in Wisconsin, and I am friends with the owner of the company, so I'm happy to share that. It is crafted with care in Cambridge, Wisconsin, and gardeners love this tool because the curved head plows through any soil, does quick work in our clay soil. I use it also to spread. So if I lay down some mulch or something, I will tilt the long-handled CobraHead on its side and use it as a spreader as much as I use it as a weeder or digging tool. So I'm scrolling down to some of the product information, but I do want to share that it is based on a old tool design with long tines, but he made it down to just the one single tine, and it is perfect, almost like using an extension of your fingers or your hands for digging. So try it out. I think you'll enjoy using it. What I love about it also is that the steel shank goes all the way through to the bottom of the handle. So you don't have to worry about it breaking off where it goes into the handle. So I don't know about you, but I've had so many weeding tools and other garden tools that either the wooden handle rotted or that it broke off where it's inserted into the base of the tool into the handle. And then you're like left literally with the tool handle in your hand and the tool head, the hoe or rake or whatever it is, stuck still in the ground. And that's never a fun experience. So let's talk next about O'Keeffe's Working Hand Hand Cream. So this I consider a garden tool. I discovered it a few years ago. It was recommended to me by a gardening friend. I was complaining about dried hands, and all my life I had not had to deal with dry hands. I have fairly oily skin, so I wasn't really dealing with it. And then one winter, my hands were just so dry and chapped, and I was using various hand creams and things, and I was like, you know, these are working okay, but at 5 minutes later, dry again. But I have to say, O'Keeffe's Working Hands really does a job. I don't know what's in there, but it is magic. You'll find it at a lot of hardware stores, at the counter. And so you know those guys who are working really hard with their hands and not wearing gloves a lot of times. And I usually wear gloves most of the time, but if you're not wearing gloves a lot, this tool will really help you. So it creates a protective layer between you and the elements. It's unscented, it's not greasy, it goes in pretty well right away after you spread it on your hands. It's great for heels as well. So if you have dry, rough feet, I highly recommend it for that. I think they do have a separate feet formula, but of course, working hands could be used on rough elbows, knees, and feet as well. And they have some different formulations that they sell. I have given this as a gift. They have a couple different gift pack versions of it to some gardeners on my list, and as stocking stuffers for other people who weren't even gardeners, who just do a lot of work outside. And they asked me, when am I going to get it again? So I definitely recommend it. There's a reason it's the #1 hand cream in America. And if you haven't tried it out, I would just get maybe the little sample version and try it out for yourself and see how it does for you. All right. So next in my list of great garden gifts and tools is the Alaska Fish Fertilizer. So this is one of the first fertilizers I used in the garden. This brand is Lily Miller, and it is great for all indoor and outdoor plants. Although I must say, I very rarely use it on an indoor plant because of the fishy smell to it. And a little bit goes a long way. My 1 quart bottle has lasted for years. It's a very weak formula, 511, but it's 100% organic. It stimulates microorganisms in the soil, doesn't burn the plants, so you can use a little bit at a time every time you're watering. It is organic and OMRI listed. Alaska Fish Fertilizer is a byproduct of our fish industries. And so you're using basically the same as if you were way back in the day burying a fish head in the ground when you're planting your seeds. That's kind of the same theory behind Alaska Fish Fertilizer. I use it mainly on my fruit producing vegetable plants. So that would be tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, those sorts of things. I tend not to use it on leafy greens. I tend not to use it again on indoor plants because of the scent, but it dissipates, very quickly. So if you wanted to use it on indoor plants, you could. And one of the things I highly recommend is when you do get the bottle and you first open it to use it, before you break the seal, shake it up really, really well, invert it upside down because a lot of the slurry tends to go to the bottom. So make sure you really shake it up every time. Don't splash it on yourself. You will regret that. And you just need a couple tablespoons per gallon of water when you're watering. And of course, you're watering around the soil root zone of the plant. You are not watering the plant's foliage. And you can do that every 2 to 3 weeks throughout the summer. I would also do that, say, on my flowering annuals to give them a little boost as well. And just a good all-around fertilizer. So one that I think, if you need it, it's there. And if you don't, you haven't spent too much money on it. All right, so next on my list of great garden tools is the Garden Fabric Plant Cover, also called row cover, crop cover, frost blanket, frost cloth. We have so many names for the same thing. Floating row cover is one of the, I guess, best known ways to phrase it. It's ultralight and resists exposure to the environment. It doesn't break down, takes several years of abuse in the garden. And again, I am a gardener who's tough on my tools and equipment. So if it survives several years for me, it'll survive several years for you. At the end of the season, you could just roll it up or fold it back and then put it out again if you want to use it as a frost cloth. I tend to use floating row covers all year round in the garden. First in the wintertime, of course, to give a little bit of insulation to the plants. And I sometimes will double it over. So if it's a lighter weight frost blanket, like a summer weight one, I'll double it over. And I use it in the spring to keep out the bunnies from eating some of those little seedlings that are popping up of the peas. And then when the beans come up, I use it almost all season long for my brassicas to keep the white moss out of it and to keep also other bugs out of my tender crops. So it's really great, again, to keep bad things out, keep good things in. It does allow sunlight through. It also allows water through. It protects from wind as well as frost, and it's a non-woven gardening fabric. So that means when it does get a tear in it, or you puncture it, say with a staple, a landscape staple, to pin it to the ground, it doesn't tear as would, say, a cotton sheet would just tear in straight lines, because it's non-woven. It's kind of all knitted together, and you don't have to worry about coming back to the garden to find things just shredded in the wind. And it does provide some UV protection to the plants. So if you were, say, in a climate that is super hot with beating down sun, you could use that to provide as a shade cloth as well. And as I said before, I double it over sometimes for frost protection. You could, of course, double it over for shade protection, and it keeps birds, other animals, insects out. So just a great all-around tool. Makes my plot look like a bunch of ghosts are living in there, but still a necessity in the vegetable garden. So I mentioned Dramm before for its watering cans, but I especially wanted to share the Dramm One Touch Rain Wand. So this is an extension to your hose that you screw in at the end of the hose, and it's a couple feet. Some of them are 16 inches, some of them are 2 feet long. The one I'm linking to is just 16 by 1 by 1. It's made out of aluminum, zinc, and brass, and it has a kind of a rain shower head to it, and that's why it's called the rain wand. And the one touch is referring to the handle, which you just use your thumb to flip up the lever on and flip back down. So you're not having to constantly compress a button like you do on other watering tools, or you're not having to put your thumb over that open end of the hose to make a gentler spray. This is great for drenching seedlings, also for reaching up into hanging baskets, so it extends your reach a bit. And again, with the rain wand, which is breaking up the heavy water stream and making it a gentle rain-like dripping on there, I'm not too worried, as I am with other hoses and instruments, that I'm going to knock down all my seedlings, or that they're going to be like smushed down to the ground, or some broken foliage or broken flowers that way. So really great for watering quickly, and I would call it a soft watering. So it makes hand watering so much easier. And this is one that a lot of people in the trade, in the horticultural industry, swear by, is the Dramm One Touch Rain Wand. So now that we're on the topic of water, the next gardening tool that I was going to share that I use constantly in the garden and sometimes in the home garden is Summit Mosquito Dunks. It also comes in mosquito bits, so broken up little bits formula. And I'm sure if you've listened to the GardenDC podcast for a while, you've heard me talk about mosquito dunks in the past. So of course, you can use a mosquito dunk in any sitting water in your garden to prevent mosquitoes from breeding there. It's non-toxic to all other wildlife, pets, fish, and humans. Doesn't matter if birds drink out of the bird bath that you've put a mosquito dunk or mosquito bits in. So I put some in my rain barrel, because even though my rain barrel has a lid, mosquitoes could still get in there. I put some in the standing water edges and pots around my water garden. I don't need it really inside my water garden, because the fish take care of most of the mosquitoes or insects that way. But if I didn't have fish in my water garden, I would throw a new dunk in there monthly. So it's naturally occurring bacteria that's toxic only to mosquito larvae. So it prevents the mosquito eggs and larvae from forming. It doesn't kill the current generation of mosquitoes. So it's not a mosquito repellent or something. The mosquitoes that currently exist lay their eggs, and they're not going to have a second, third, or continuing generation. So it's great to also put little mosquito bits in your rain gutters and anywhere that holds water, like a pipe or something that you can't clean out or get to. Say you have a downspout or somewhere like that. And again, as I said, it comes in bits, a shakeable bits formula. but also a large card with several of the dunks is great because you can break up a dunk. I find I'll just use a quarter of a dunk in my rain barrel, not the whole thing, and it lasts for about 30 days. So I'll mark on my calendar once a month to replace the mosquito dunks throughout the season. So makes outside so much better when you can cut down on some of that mosquito population. And if you ever have any sitting water in saucers or anywhere else, another great place to put mosquito bits. Also, if you have white flies on your indoor house plants, you can sprinkle a few mosquito bits on the soil surface, and that will help with that problem, or fungus gnats. So next on my list of recommended garden tools and gifts is the original MuckBoots scrub boot. So this is when it's really mud season outside, right? So that's usually late winter, early spring in the garden. So there are several different muck boots available. So there's some that are ankle high, there are some that are almost knee high that come up your shin. There are camouflage colors, there's dark colors. Mainly they're in dark green to brown colors, so they're kind of just blending in. And I have one of the fold down ones of the original muck boot, the rubber garden boots that fold down and have a pretty little floral pattern inside them. So they come in a couple different colors in the women's rubber garden boots category. So these keep your feet dry and warm. They are also made in the USA or imported depending on the source. They're 100% neoprene. So they're easy to hose or wash off on the outside when they get caked with mud. Good for any outdoor tasks, especially in that winter time. But even in the heat, I have a lot of friends who still wear them in the summertime because it wicks away the humidity and perspiration and it allows some airflow. So if you haven't tried on a pair of original muck boots, maybe give them a try and see how they do for you. And they do have a little tab on the back of the heel, which makes them easy to pull on and off. Sometimes with a lot of garden boots, I find, or rain boots, you have to sit down and pull them off, and that could be, a little bit of a struggle. But the muck boots really do a great job with that, and good, easy fit, and pretty true to size. So next on our garden gift list are copper plate metal plant labels. So these are on little metal stakes, and the actual metal plant label is copper. And you can use them all throughout your garden for gardening plant labels. They are weatherproof, they're long lasting, they're attractive, really nice if you're giving a gift plant to write a label and stick it in there. So you can write on them, but what I love about the super thin copper labels, is you can press into them with a pencil, and that allows it to, even in the sun, if it gets a little faded, you're still able to read that label. Because I know, like many gardeners out there, you come along and there's a plant label, yay, but then you try to read it and it has faded to nothing, or it's disappeared over the years. So these are great, long lasting. The sides of them are made out of galvanized steel where the brackets are, and then the prongs that go into the ground or soil are steel. So again, super long lasting. They're not going to rust, goes through all weather, and really makes a nice gift to give a set of these, again, for the gardener in your life or for yourself. So let's talk next about the Shrub Rake. So I haven't listed a bunch of other rakes on here, but I really like the Ames Poly Shrub Rake with steel handle, again, because it's not as breakable as some of the others, and it's a thin little narrow rake, and it gets really under shrubs and areas that are hard to access. So if you have a bunch of debris stuck inside an evergreen or to the back behind a fence or in a narrow area, I think the rake head is, I was going to say, about 6 inches wide. Here it says it's 8 inches wide, and it does have a cushioned grip at the tip, makes it really easy to use, vinyl steel coated. Probably you, like me, and many other gardeners, we have what's called a wardrobe of rakes, right? So we have a wide head rake for raking leaves or debris up or moving mulch around the garden. We might have a steel head rake for the vegetable garden. And I also recommend adding to that wardrobe one of these thin, smaller rake heads to extend your grip. And I find I'm using it all the time to pull things out. Say a plastic bag has gone up into a shrub or tree. This helps me reach up there without having to get onto a ladder. So really helpful to use that one. All right, so next is the Hori knife. So Hori, Japanese garden knife. This was given to me as a gift from another gardener, and I've heard so many other gardeners, both amateurs and professionals, swear by their Hori knives. So this one I had to add to the list. Of course, there are many manufacturers and different suppliers of the Hori knife, but I like this general purpose one that's got a sharp stainless steel blade, heavy riveted leather sheath, and that is the most important thing, and it comes with its own whetstone sharpening stone. So again, note the heavy riveted leather sheath. You want to be super careful with this sharp bladed garden tool and make sure you're storing it always back into that sheath. It is great for weeding, great for prying apart plants when you're dividing them. Say you have a big thick clump of hosta or irises or other really tight-rooted plants, could be a bunch of bulbs you're looking to divide. Great for that, great for weeding. Of course, you can use it beyond the garden. They list camping and hunting as some of the other uses for the Japanese Hori knife, but I would just say it's one of your mainstay tools, similar in use to a garden trowel, of course, but much sharper and much more efficient for digging, and heavy duty wet clay soil is nothing standing up to the Hori knife. So you can buy models that have a serrated edge on one side and a straight edge on the other, and that can help in various different tools. Usually the blade is about 6 inches long. Some of the models have markings so you can see how deep you're digging your bulbs and other plants. So that's a great thing to have out in the garden as well for a multi-purpose tool. So, and speaking of multi-purpose tools, next is the bypass pruner, and that's from Corona Tools. And that is in the same line as the Snips I talked about earlier. So these are the classic bypass hand pruners, multi-purpose use, mainly for pruning small shrubs and trees, and has a cushioned handle for reduced fatigue. You're going to want to try out, I think, a few different bypass pruners to see what's most comfortable for your hand weight and strength. I find this one to be a good universal one. It's got good hand strength and angled pruning head for ergonomic use, but you know, your hand strength could vary. So again, you might want to try out some different models of Corona pruners or different manufacturers entirely. But I'm recommending the Corona ones because of the US owned company and because it's a forged steel blade with a long service life, and it's pretty easy to sharpen, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. So next on my list is something that I have discovered over the past few years, and when I give my deer and garden mammal talk to groups, I talk about the systemic animal repellent tablets as one of the newer things on the market that we can use against deer. And so this one is from the Repellex brand. So I'll say that name again. It is systemic animal repellent. So it repels not just deer, but any mammal that will want to chomp on your herbaceous plants. So rabbits, woodchucks, groundhogs, dogs that are being naughty in the garden. So what's great about it is it has a super bitter substance in it and a capsicum that's embedded in the tablets. You push the tablets down at the root level of the plant, and it's absorbed into the plant roots and goes into the system of the leaves and branches. So it has to be usually a herbaceous plant that would take this up, herbaceous meaning not woody. So I would say hostas, daylilies, iris, great for this usage, and it is going to need one tablet per plant, basically. So it has to be at each plant's root zone. That does make it a bit expensive. So when you are investing in this, you'll notice that it's almost sometimes $1 a tablet. So you might want to do a group order to get a bulk supply of it. And it lasts up to 1 year, which is great. So you just do it at the beginning of the season as the plants are emerging from the soil. So your perennials, your herbaceous plants, and then you don't have to worry about respraying. You don't have to worry about rain washing off the spray. Nothing else is absorbed right into the plant itself. But you do need to reapply, put a new tablet each growing season. So when that hosta dies back in the fall, when it reemerges the next year, it's not going to have the systemic in it unless you reapply it. I will say several warnings. Always wear eye protection, gloves, open the bottle outside, never inside, because it is the most bitter substance. And if you get it on your hands or in your eyes or even in your mouth, you will deeply regret it. It's not going to hurt you, but it will be very unpleasant and you will not like that at all. So again, maybe even put on one of your extra COVID masks that you have laying around. That's always a good idea when you're handling this. And when you open the bottle, maybe not on a windy day. So again, this is a systemic repellent. It's really durable. Some of the tablets could be broken or crumbly, but just, stick in the other parts of it. And what I recommend is doing just your prize plants or those on the outer perimeter. So the hostas, that would be the ones your deer would first encounter, do that outside edge. And in general, they'll take a couple bites of those leaves, spit them out, and not come back again. So that is a great way to save some money and just be selective in your use of the systemic animal repellent tablets. So we talked about Corona's Snips and the hand pruners. So I want to talk now about the tool blade sharpener that they offer. So if you have a hand pruner, which I think every gardener would, in your pocket, you want to be regularly sharpening it. So the Corona tool blade sharpener makes it super easy. It's fairly inexpensive tool, really great stocking stuffer, ideal for sharpening all straight blades. So this isn't going to be good for your serrated blades, but really nice for any straight bladed tool, including your digging implements. So I'll sometimes use this on a trowel or edge of a shovel to give myself a nice, straight, sharp cutting angle. And if you check out their YouTube channel for Corona Tools, they have like a little how-to and some photos as well of how to do that sharpening with the carbide blade and the non-slip grip. You'll want to do it outside, sitting down on a level surface, just to make sure that you are not cutting yourself when you're doing any sharpening of your tools. And this is a great time of year in the fall and winter to do some tool cleaning and sharpening and sit down and do that. So we're rounding up our list. This is number 21 out of 21, and this is the Centurion portable water mister spray bottle for garden and outdoor. And this is one of the ones I love because it really saves your hand strength. Because if you ever had to mist a lot of plants or spray one whole area and you're just pumping with your hand, eventually your wrist and hand are going to get really tired and achy. So Centurion, who's maker of garden tools, has offered this portable water mister spray bottle. It takes batteries, so that's how it's automatic. You kind of just hit the button and it sprays for you. So you can use it for indoors for cleaning and for other usage, but I find it great for out in the garden. And you can of course use it for your ironing too if you wanted to. But a really great handy use, and again saves wear and tear on your wrists, especially if you have troubles with arthritis or other issues. Just need to have extra batteries on hand in case the batteries start to die on you. But I find that the battery life is pretty long lasting in these motorized spray bottles. So that was my list of top 21 garden tools and garden gift ideas. but I'm going to throw in one bonus item, and that's the Tenax deer net. And disclosure is that I have been working with Tenax and helping them out with their social media over the last couple years. But I wanted to point out Tenax multi-purpose net is great for keeping out many animals from your garden. Tenax is made in the USA here in Baltimore, and they also have a factory down south. So they are making this extruded multi-purpose netting that is kind of a black weave. They have several different models of netting that are available on the market, but I find this multi-purpose one great to keep especially rabbits out of my vegetable garden, and also to supplement the fencing around areas in my garden where I want to keep deer out of. So check out that, and that's Tenax, and you can see a lot of their line offered on Amazon as well as to local hardware stores and supply places. So if you need even more ideas than what I shared with you today in this episode, you can go to the beginner garden basics list of gardening ideas. It's available on Amazon. I'll share that link with you in our show notes. I also have a Amazon shop list of great gardening books, and that includes over 75 garden books that we have reviewed in Washington Gardener magazine. And so I've placed them on our great gardening books list in our Amazon shop. And again, I'll have a direct link to that in our show notes. And again, our Amazon storefront is amazon.com/shop/WDC Gardener. I've even created a gifts for garden cats gardening wish list, and that is at the catsandgardens.blogspot.com, my fun blog all about cats and gardening. And then I'm going to give that disclosure again. So if you click on any of these links, when you're ordering anything from Amazon, it puts a few pennies in the Washington Gardener magazine bank account. Thank you for anything you can direct our way. We're participants in the Amazon Services Associates Program, an affiliate advertising program designed to provide a means for sites to earn advertising fees for advertising and links to Amazon. And of course, I'm also going to say you don't have to buy from my Amazon store or links. All of these products are very easily obtainable from your local independent garden center, from your local hardware store, from other online catalogs. But I hope I gave you a few new ideas for gardening gifts and to gift yourself. Happy gardening. Thank you for listening to GardenDC. You can become a listener supporter for as little as 99 cents a month by going to the supporter link in our show notes, or directly to podcasters.spotify.com/pod/show/GardenDC/support. Another way to support this podcast is to subscribe to our monthly digital publication, Washington Gardener Magazine. To do so, go to WashingtonGardener.com or WashingtonGardener.blogspot.com. You can find Washington Gardener on social media at WDC Gardener on Twitter or X, Instagram, and Pinterest, and on Facebook at Washington Gardener Magazine. And be sure to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Please take a minute to share us on social media with #GardenDC so other gardeners can find us too.